North Kashmir, Sopore area. One police personnel also injured in an encounter in Baramulla's Sopore area, and also an overground worker from Rajouri who's been detained for providing logistical support to terrorists to carry out the strike in Riyasi. Now we are turning our attention to that big news break on the right stand. It's a continuation of our exclusive inputs that we've brought to you right after the Riyasi terror strike, and on June 4th, the day when the new government was sworn in. We showed you how terror groups are actually changing the theatre of action, or shifting the theatre of action from the entire Kashmir Valley, South Kashmir, North Kashmir, and moving towards the Jammu region. And to ease, perhaps move away with multiple aspects, because the security grid is so tight, so activate this region. Also try and somewhere force redeployment of troops from the LAC to ease the stranglehold there, and so that the CCP could make their inroads. We showed you how this entire nexus is happening. Perhaps is it Beijing that's bankrolling this entire effort via security funds release to protect their CPEC regions? That is something we have shared with you. But now we also got you the truth that how they were wanting to target Hindu groups very clearly in Jammu, create distress amongst the Hindus there, perhaps force them out or create certain levels of divide on ground, but more importantly create a big karnama ahead of the Prime Minister's visit, and also as soon as the government has been formed here. Hindu-dominated regions now becoming target of Pak proxies. Now, last week we showed you how terrorists were actually using the Pir Panjal ranges to target the Hindu-dominated regions. In this edition, we show you and in detail how the terrorists are actually using the topography of the region to their advantage. Security forces will have to relook deployment or on terms of also tackling these new terror hotbeds in Jammu. Let's try and understand this via a map and try and say how are these forces, the forces now looking at a new challenge. This is what's happening. The terrorists are actually moving to this region, that is the Jammu region. This is a new terror hotbed that's being created in Jammu. Interestingly, if we move forward, the other inputs that say is that the regions have turned out to be huge ups and downs in the mountain ranges, and it's easy movement for the terror groups. Now, a lot of these terrorists are being trained in regions like Tora Bora. And there what happens in Afghanistan, the terrain is very similar. So they know how to train there and then survive in this kind of a terrain. They are actually in Bagh, Aliabad and Adilabad and other regions, which is right opposite Poonch and Kathua on the IB international border. So they are making their way in via the international border. These then, if we move forward, opposite Rajouri in Tattapani, Hajira, Nikial, Kund, and also Kund Samani and Kot Kotera. Now these are all locations on the IB on the other side, and then they are trying to make their ingress here, and they're coming in batches of 10 to 12. That's what we're given to understand. They're coming in batches of 10 to 12 and they're entering the Poonch Rajouri region. So as they move into Poonch Rajouri from that Samba sectors, that region, and then they're using that as their base. They're trying to stick around there. They move to different locations via villages. The villages areas also, there are on the outskirts, there are dhoks, which are only 5 to 10 hutments. They survive there, and by the time the locals and the villagers realize that there is a presence of certain people from outside, they actually make a way, get away from there. So by the time the intel is gathered or the forces can move in, they've already shifted base. And this, because of this spread out terrain, it's allowing them easy ingress and egress, and also movement around. And then they're also getting overground support, ladies and gentlemen. So they're making these moves. Why is that? What is the thought process behind this, and what does this indicate? Now, does this mean this will force a recalibration ahead of International Yoga Day, the Prime Minister's visit, ahead of the assembly elections of the Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir? Is this deliberate? Or is there a greater play that we should see, that the terrorists are actually moving downwards and they're trying to increase the range of operation, and Jammu means they're also very close to Punjab then, ladies and gentlemen. So there are multiple parallels to be drawn. Ahmed Ayaz, political analyst, joins us. SP Vaid, former DGP Jammu and Kashmir, with us. Sushant Sareen, senior fellow ORF, and Tuin Sinha, national spokesperson of the BJP, with us. Namaste and Jai Hind to everybody. Thank you very, very much. Mr. SP Vaid, is this, and I know we've spoken about this when we're looking at the terror movements, but the larger gameplay that is happening to create strife in Jammu, to disrupt the lives there, and the target is a very clear demographics.
Yes, good evening, Anand. See, we have seen this happening in 90s. Let me tell you, when I was young SP in Badgam district of Kashmir Valley and then Udhampur, we had seen all this happening. In fact, if you recall, 1991, the terror arc started spreading from Kashmir Valley to this side of the Pir Panchal range. In fact, in the early 1990, when I used to travel from Kashmir to Jammu on the national highway, I used to wonder, that time Jammu region was completely free, that if all these terrorists come this side, these high mountains, what will happen? And true to my apprehension, that's what happened. And we have seen so many massacres in the 90s in the region of Jammu region, Doda, hills of Doda, Rajouri, Poonch, Udhampur, Kishtwar, all this belt, and lot of massacres of the minority Hindu community took place. It was with the intention to create Hindu-Muslim divide in the rest of India. And now this, what is happening today in Jammu region is with a deliberate plan to ease pressure in Kashmir, to increase the arc of terror to Jammu region and engulf the whole state, so that the forces are taken out of Kashmir, and also from Ladakh, where China is facing, seeing eyeball to eyeball, seeing the pressure of Indian forces. So the idea is to have these forces deployed in Jammu region. And Jammu region, unlike Kashmir Valley, is not plains. It's all hills, and hills absorb troops, you know that, Anand. And brigades and battalions get absorbed.
But I want to understand, ये तो IB है. International borders are far more difficult to penetrate. So how are they crossing over? And they are coming in batches of 10, 12, और ये पहला batch नहीं. There are 2 or 3 who have already made ingress into Bharat, as we are given to understand. This is all trained by Sajid Jat, Lashkar cadre, trained in Nangarhar and that region, and then they are moving in here.
Anand, let me elaborate it. See, what you are saying is coming in the groups of 10 to 12. That is happening in Rajouri, Poonch, in the LOC sector. As far as IB is concerned, you saw that day group of 2 terrorists which came to Kathua, and all 2 got eliminated. Another group which I had mentioned in my previous exchange with you, that had managed to cross from the IB and gone towards Doda, which had actually encountered at 2 places. Now that group, I am told, is 6 to 7 group strength. That had also managed to cross from IB sector. So probably either IB or Punjab sector. So they are using tunnels. They are using even cutting the fans and managing the. So tunnels have been detected a number of times in the IB sector. So this is possible that the smaller groups do manage to cross from the IB sector, but larger groups are what you are seeing in Rajouri Poonch. They are trying to in fact completely disturb the Jammu region, and that is what we need to be worried about. Particularly, my concern is Rajouri Poonch. Doda, I am still confident we had handled all this region. Earlier also I had mentioned to Anand mentioned to you that by 2006-07 we had eliminated the whole terrorism in Jammu region, and Jammu region was almost incident free. I was IG Jammu from 2004 to 8. I know it. How things moved and completely Jammu region was free of terrorism. But Rajouri Poonch is my concern, and the army need to ensure that no more infiltration takes place. That has to be ensured, and same applies to BSF in IB sector. And those who have managed,
they are the first line of defense with respect to international border and the LOC, the army and the BSF.
Those who have managed to come, we need to go after them with full vigor.
Here the concerns, Mr. Vaid, and I'm bringing in Tuin Sinha there before going to Sushant Sareen and Ahmed Ayaz. The concern is that there is still, beg your pardon, there's still overground support. There is still, these people don't know the lay of the land, but they are getting local support. They are being handed cash. they are being shown directions, and they are also being taken to people who will give them shelter. In some places they are forcing themselves, other places they know where to stay. And this is all happening in the Jammu region.
That's true.
This is a concern. Just bringing in Tuhin Sinha, Mr. Vaid. Yes, Tuhin Sinha.
Well, Namaste, Anand. There is no doubt that hybrid terror is a concern not just in Jammu, in Kashmir, but in other parts of the world also. And I think I'm sure the local administration is working closely to identify the vulnerable pockets which have been involved in the Raisi attack. In fact, one overground worker has been arrested. The 2 terrorists have been neutralized. The point is, terror is an inalienable part of Pakistan's existence. Until such time Pakistan exists, there will be these temporary attempts to revive terrorism. In the last few years, we have done well. Post the abrogation of Article 370, the terror incidents and casualties have gone down by 80%. But yes, the fact that they are finding new geographical terrain, while it may infer on the one hand that terrorism has reached its saturation in Kashmir. There is very little scope for Pakistan to perpetrate terror in Kashmir anymore. Fact that they are getting into new geographical terrain is a cause of concern, and the government would address it with an iron hand the way it addressed it in Kashmir.
Now, you would appreciate this, that they are sending batches of 10s and 12s. Let's say that there are 30 of them. To nab this 30, at least 3,000 need to be deployed at our end, because that is the nature of the terrain and that's the nature of the beast. The prey, the predator is only one. And these people are going to be in smaller groups, and they are going to roam around because we don't know what their plan is. They know what they want to do. That's the reality of the thing, and that's the challenge for the forces. The larger question is, why are these camps allowed to continue to be, infest with pests like this, that they are forced to thrust them? You would also appreciate that there is pressure on the Pakistani establishment to do something with this entire idle lot, this entire batch processing that they are continuously processing of jihadis. Now with Taliban in Afghanistan, they have no other option but to turn eastward. And we should have known as a nation. What are we doing to preempt these kind of strikes and preempt these kind of infiltrations? Why is it that there is nothing more beyond Balakot that's been done?
Well, these are issues which I'm sure, the highest levels of decision makers in the government are abreast with. The point is, if you look at nowhere across the world can you establish zero terror attacks, because all it takes is, while security forces work around the year to ensure that terror attack does not take place, all that the terrorists need to do is succeed once. But the point is, like I mentioned, if you go by pure data, we have done well in addressing the problem of terrorism, and these bouts, while they sporadically erupt from time to time, they are equally crushed with a lot of ferocity, which will be done once again.
No, but you also appreciate this, and see there are questions that are coming through right now. The fact is, what is the government going to do? Are we going to continue to wait for them to come and create a new theatre of turmoil and terror while they try and make their way back and reactivate Kashmir? And how are we tackling this OGW menace, this issue?
We tackled it effectively in the Kashmir Valley. One of the important decisions that we took some time back, a few years ago, was not to ensure any of these ostentatious displays of support for slain terrorists and, the marches, the procession marches that used to take place at their cremation. And, that was one of the reasons why, the overground support in Kashmir came down. Now, like I said, Jammu was... We hadn't probably anticipated, that newer regions of Jammu would be on the radar of Pakistan immediately. And I think over a period of time, in the weeks to come, Prime Minister Modi attaches utmost significance to Kashmir. That is the reason he is in Kashmir for the next 2 days.
Within less than 12 to 14 months, Sushant Sareen, of the abrogation of Article 370, drone drops had started not just in Punjab, but it also happened in Jammu. The moment those drone drops happened and the BSF had to shoot down these drones, immediately the intel assessment was that they are going to shift the theatre of action and try to look at Poonch Rajouri in the near future. So then 36 months later, what is happening? Is that not a fair question to ask? Why is it that this grid was not tightened even before they could get active?
Anand, that's the only relevant question to be asked. The fact of the matter remains that, and I'm afraid I don't agree with what Tuhin is saying. If you are anticipating or you had not anticipated that this is going to happen in Jammu region, because it's been happening for the last 3 years, just because now some yatris have been killed, 9 or and you've had 4 back-to-back attacks, suddenly panic bells have started ringing. This should have happened when the first ambushes started taking place 3 years back. This, you should not have waited for 2024 to wake up to the fact, and because we've experienced terrorism in Jammu and Kashmir for over 30 years now. Now, we know this, that the moment pressure is exerted in one part of the erstwhile state, the terrorists move to a place which is relatively not as well guarded, or where the focus isn't as strong as what it is in the place from where they're moving out. We've seen that within the valley, that the center of gravity of terrorism has continuously shifted between North Kashmir and South Kashmir. We've seen this in Jammu region, and it betrays a kind of I don't want to use those words out here because this is ultimately a family channel, but it shows that some people were not thinking straight, that this is what is going to happen. And then the worst thing which is done in government is to quote statistics, that look, in such and such years so many attacks happened, in such and such years so many attacks happened, look, the graph is falling. That's utterly nonsensical. We are doing this in Punjab. Let me tell you this. We are doing this in Punjab as we speak, that no, but the situation is not as bad as what it was in the 80s and 90s. Do you want the situation to be as bad as what it was in the 80s and 90s before you finally wake up? Because you are seeing all the manifestations of what happened in 80s and 90s on the streets of Amritsar today, in the Golden Temple today. But you are sleeping on the wheel. But the same thing happened in Jammu. We slept on the wheel. The center of gravity had been shifting. We had been seeing these incidents taking place one after another. Yes, maybe there were a 3-month gap.
Correct.
But those incidents were happening, and we should have woken up at that point of time.
No, not just that. When you are seeing a considerable build-up that is happening along the other side, they are going to come here only. Every time there is a build-up, you got to do it. You have to do pest control to stop people coming inside, pests coming entering the house. You don't do pest control once they are inside your house. That is damage control.
Once they are inside your house, then you have to do damage control. But the bottom line is that we thought, okay, fine, we did the surgical strikes, we did the Balakot strikes, and now the message has gone across. Nothing more needs to be done. That's not how the Pakistanis read it. That's not how the terrorists read it. And they think that they can keep it on a low sim, and they can continue. Don't ensure that you don't kill 40 people in one go. Ensure you kill 5 or 10 people in one go. So this is what I the other day also Anand had raised. What is your threshold? And are you falling into that trap of a threshold?
But Sushantji, even that threshold, if you look at what happened with Riyasi, the bus had 41 passengers and they fired at the entire bus and they surrounded the bus and shot it. The driver got a bullet injury and he drove it into a khai, and that has perhaps overall every life matters, but reduced the death toll to 9. There were so many people who lay down there as if they are dead, and the terrorists had to scoot. But the target was again 40 people, and this time all civilians, Hindus going for a yatra. That's how diabolical their plan is, sir. And this is a lesson क्या हिस्ट्री से हम नहीं सीखे. ये हमेशा पलट के आते हैं, जितना भी मार खाएं पलट के आते हैं, जब तक आप इनको खत्म नहीं कर दोगे. कभी 150 साल बाद आते हैं, कभी 10 साल बाद आते हैं, कभी 2 साल बाद आते हैं, कभी 5 साल बाद आते हैं. यू कैन लुक एट एवरी टाइम. सोमनाथ में मार खाए 150 साल बाद फिर आए ना सर. उसके बाद अभी देखिए ना, 47 में मार खाई फिर आए वापस, 65 में आए, फिर 71 में आए, फिर 99 में आए, वापस तो आ ही रहे हैं. वी शुड, डोंट वी अंडरस्टैंड दिस? डोंट वी लर्न फ्रॉम आवर हिस्ट्री?
No, we don't learn nothing from our history, Anand. Come on, you know that. We keep making the same mistakes over and over again. We made that mistakes, for example, in our Eastern Theatre, where we've allowed infiltration to come in and thinking that, okay, fine, we are now going to get a nice vote bank. And the entire demography has started changing in many regions. And nobody has done a damn thing about it. Not this government, not the previous governments, nobody. Nobody does anything about it. We've seen this happen in Jammu and Kashmir. And, if for a couple of years you have relative peace, then, you start doing the drum beats that everything has been settled, even though everything has not been settled. Your politics is not settled in Jammu and Kashmir as yet. There you haven't created, yes, you have made massive changes and excellent changes.
Yes.
And I have absolutely no quibbles on that. But why haven't you built upon it? Your administration out there, you look at the kind of complaints which you hear about the administration and how unresponsive it is. Why hasn't your system, you had almost 6-7 years now of central rule in Jammu and Kashmir. Why haven't you been able to ensure that the administration is so responsive? And don't give me full page newspaper advertisements. The moment I see a full page newspaper advertisement of what all has been done, it means nothing has been done. That's a simple.
That's a cynical way of also looking at it, because you would want to see it manifest rather than manifest on ground, rather than manifest in newspaper ads. That's one point of view. But there is not taking away the credit that is due to the government for what they have done post the abrogation of Article 370 in 2019. The simple point is that we have to.
Allow me a second. Yeah. I am one of those who think that what was done on the 5th of April 2019 was one of the best things we have done since independence. I am no quibbles on that, and I congratulate the government on that. But look, that was a necessary step to have taken, which they took. What about the sufficient conditions? Have they been taken care of? Have those been addressed? No, they haven't.
That's what I'm trying to come back to. And Tuhin Sinha, that's where the criticism is, that when you see the signs, you don't allow a small injury to become an infection to a cyst, and the cyst becoming gangrene before you have to amputate. You just need to ensure that you put the disinfectant right at the time when the first injury happens. That same logic applies to this region. That's what the point that's being made. Tuhin Sinha, and then I'll go to Ahmed Ayaz. He's not spoken it. Yeah.
Anand, we have decimated Pakistan in the last few years. The thing is, now we are realizing even decimation seems to be inadequate. We will give them a fresh dose. But yes, the larger problem, the problem of hybrid terror, is something I think we need to, the government also will be mulling a lot more in finding a solution to the minuscule, the small fraction of people who comprise hybrid terrorists, because obviously a few years ago that it was a far bigger problem in the Kashmir Valley, but yes, now in the other parts of Kashmir, in Jammu and other parts, the problem of hybrid terror will be addressed with a lot of deliberation and by applying our minds to that.
More importantly, they should not be allowed to come in. These are all FTs. The action, the person, the OGWs is one point, but the FTs, the foreign terrorists who are coming in, the infiltration, those jihadis are sitting there and putting pressure ki hame kahin bhejo. Now they are also batch processing these jihadis. We are not cleaning them up, so they will find some way to enter here and they'll push them through. That's what will happen. They're coming here as cannon fodder, but imagine the pressure on our forces, para-military, police, across the board. And that's something we don't need. It's just a plain point. Yes, Ahmed Ayaz, who are these OGWs? And why are they still operating in Jammu and Kashmir? They don't see the reality manifest in 4 or 5 years, and they want a situation like in POK today? Ahmed Ayaz, can you hear me?
Yeah. Can you repeat it?
Sir, we keep losing you on audio and video. I hope you can hear me now. Please tell me, who are these OGWs? Don't they see the difference between what is happening in Hindustan and what is happening in Pakistan occupied Kashmir? Don't they see? They want that kind of a life?
You have to see OWGs in isolation. You have to see in totality. You see, when you mean to combat, this terrorism, and then everything has to be kept in mind, and who is doing what and where from it starts. But the question is, to me, there looks to be two bad things happening. One, that the government, having claimed that the situation has normalized in Kashmir, what has, as a result of that, You see, people have started relaxing and moving very freely and getting into the, even tourist places and tourist, locations and spots, and then the tourism has increased. So that being a thing, you see, still there's a danger. We have taken it as a complete, when the government says that, claims that situation is normal, and we have taken it as a, in a very, very clarity. And then we start moving around, and when the situation is not still good. And second, the situation now has extended to the Jammu, has extended the Jammu. You see, that's another issue where I feel that that's complete failure. That perhaps the administration or the maybe the security force are doing well. There's no doubt about it that they are making all comebacks. But the administration is still possibly not aware of as to what's happening. Had they been knowing that what's happening, possibly they must not have made a very fair claim of having, eliminated the terrorism, and then the things have normalized.
But you have nothing to say. You have nothing to say about Pakistan pushing these foreign terrorists into Jammu and targeting yatris, pilgrims.
Whether it is homegrown or pushing
That's
from
not
the
a
military, whether it is homegrown or pushing from the IBs, from the Pakistan. But the point is that there are people who are to look after borders, who are to look intelligence, who are to see. Then if you say that these are
so what should be done with these? What should be done with these OGWs who are helping these foreigners who don't even know the lay of the land? उनको तो कोई local ही बता रहा है ना. उसके साथ कैसे क्या? What should be done? Should they also be treated like terrorists only?
Anand, let me tell you, it is not that what is to be done. What needs to be done, possibly more is done. See, how is there anyone who is spared? There is not a single man spared. You must see that many people are there under PSAs, detentions, etc., under terror funding. There is no one spared. It's not that anybody is spared there. But still, people may be living in the jungles. You don't know. People in Toda, in Riasi, in other such areas. You don't know. They may not be living in houses, or maybe it's very limitedly. They must be living in
time the people of Jammu and Kashmir who have been providing very valuable human aid provide some more human aid, and people of Jammu just wake up to this reality that threat lurks around them and they are now being targeted, and pull up the administration where it's lax, pull up the authorities where it's lax, but more importantly keep their eyes open to see and spot out those who are traitors within, who live amongst us, and then they are working as hybrid terrorists and batting for the enemy who's wanting to bleed Bharat with 1,000 cuts. I thank all our guests. Thank you very, very much. Sushant Sareen ji, please stay on with us. We will try and move forward. Multiple grounds to cover, ladies and gentlemen. In and around us, there has been a lot that's happening. A delegation of US lawmakers met the exiled Tibetan spiritual leader, His Holiness the Dalai Lama, and this meeting happened at Dharamshala in Himachal Pradesh. The meeting annoyed Beijing, which urged the United States on Tuesday to fully recognize the anti-China and separatist nature of the Dalai Lama and also refrain from any form of contact. The US has long supported the rights of the Tibetan people to practice their religion and culture and has accused China of human rights violations in the remote Himalayan region that borders Bharat. US has also affirmed President Joe Biden's intention to sign the Resolve Tibet Act, which was passed last week by the Congress. China has also warned President Biden against signing this legislation, claiming that that this is will be transgression of Chinese sovereignty or the CCP's sovereignty. But the dragon is also attempting to stare down at Bharat and keep spreading fake propaganda over its rights over Tibet. Government sources have told CNN News 18 that their claims are absolutely baseless. The CCP making baseless claims. These are our inputs brought to us by our group editor security Manoj Kumar Gupta that show that China's desperate attempt to control Tibet but has actually got no right over Tibet or even the entire sequence of electing the Panchen Lama and also the Dalai Lama. China actually wants to control Tibet via two actions. One territorial, the other one is the cultural and demographic genocide. The cultural control is via exercising its control over who would be the 15th Dalai Lama. First Dalai Lama was born back in 1391. The People's Republic of China was established in 1949. So clearly Tibetan culture is way back, nearly 600 years before even the CCP or the manifestation of the PLA. China can't claim an institution that precedes its own formation. The abduction of the 11th Panchen Lama from Tibet shows the dragon's intention. China called for Tibet's invasion in 1949 and introduced Order Number 5 in 2007. Order Number 5 confirms reincarnations of Lamas practicing Tibetan Buddhism. Order Number 5 was introduced by Beijing to try and strangle Tibetan Buddhism. Numerous monks have then thereafter fled Tibet, including His Holiness. The Buddhist institutes in Tibet are adhering to Xi Jinping's idea. In fact, displaying a portrait of the Dalai Lama in a Tibet monastery is actually being considered a punishable offense. Dalai Lama supporter Namki was actually imprisoned and sentenced to in a PLA-controlled Tibetan region. They are even renaming it, and they've been even not even calling it Tibet for such a long time. And on Dalai Lama's succession plan, the MEA has said that only India has a legitimate say. Bharat will support and endorse the 15th Dalai Lama. We will endorse the 15th Dalai Lama in accordance with the right processes as per as the Tibetan Buddhism way and as prescribed by the 14th Dalai Lama. Processes have been set forth by the present Dalai Lama for the succession plan, and we will strongly oppose outside interference and influence. Tibetans will decide if the 15th Dalai Lama will stay in Bharat or not, and will be a unifying force in safeguarding the succession process. So the attack is on the succession process. Nancy Pelosi, when she comes here, and Bharat's position, Tenzin Sundu is with us, Aina Tangen is with us, and so is Sushant Sareem. Tenzin Sundu, namaste. आप कैसे इसे देखते हैं बताइए? How do you see this?
Namaste. Thanks for discussing issue of Tibet here. It's not always that we discuss Tibet here in India, but this time Nancy Pelosi and the entire high-level U.S. delegation coming to Dharamshala, meeting with His Holiness the Dalai Lama at a time when United States is making a serious attempt in supporting Tibet, and that too by making into law a very strong bill supporting that Tibet was a free and independent country, that Tibet is an occupied country today, and that the Tibetan people have right to self-determination. These are the three strong points that none of the countries ever made today, but United States is taking this up. And just the last phase is left where United States President Joe Biden is likely to sign this bill into law anytime soon, maybe in 1 week or so. But this is the highest level delegation, and this is the strongest support Tibet is ever getting. We remain grateful to Government of India and people of India that they're giving us the support and the shelter. But now we have to see how India's security is linked to the issue of Tibet, and how United States is taking up the issue of Tibet at the highest level. And this will have a huge significance. I'm telling you, this is going to bring a major change to the issue of Tibet vis-a-vis China. And China is not going to keep silent. It's not going to immediately resolve the issue, but this is going to bring about visibility to Tibet, recognition to Tibet as a country, and how China's occupation and systematic attempt in destroying Tibetan language, culture, environment, and continue to take advantage of the dictatorship, and how China tried to use all that in order to maintain its trade and supply chains to countries around the world, and how internationally for decades, internationally people have kept silent about it. But today, United States is taking it up, and it's just a matter of a week's time when...
But Tenzin, also throw light, even as Aina Tangen joins us, on the entire matter of interference in the selection or election of the next Dalai Lama. How has China tried to interfere in this process?
Well, His Holiness the Dalai Lama is an institution. This is the 14th Dalai Lama. Just as you said very correctly in your introduction, that People's Republic of China, PRC, the government was formed in 1949.
Yes.
And then when we say Communist Party of China, again formed in 1920. But the institution of His Holiness the Dalai Lama has been going on since 1646, and that's the time, almost about like 400 years of the institution of the Dalai Lama. Today, China, because they are maintaining a dictatorial regime in Tibet and also in China, they think they can do whatever they want, and they are actually making a revisionist policy by changing history. Today, they are saying Tibet, East Turkestan, Southern Mongolia, Manchuria, all of them are part of China. This is what they're saying.
Yes.
This revisionist policy is a politics they are playing simply because China's supply chain and trade has become a cause of dependency to many of the international countries. And for a long time, because of trade and supply chain, many countries have blindly accepted to what is called China's occupation or China's part. Today, United States is bringing that very serious case, and United States making this into law is dislodging the very basis and standing of China.
See, as PLA would look at it or the CCP would look at it, they would believe that this is US directly meddling in Asia. US has no business being here. Sushant Sareen, how would you respond to this, that US has no business being here? Why is US using India or Bharat to meddle into affairs that belong to Bharat and its neighbor, China and its neighbors? Why should the US get active here? And that's one of the issues that the CCP has picked up.
So, Anand, there are two parts to this. One is the presumption that the US is using India. I think I don't entirely agree with that. It's not, it's not as though, and I've made this point earlier as well, this is not the first time American officials are going to Dharamshala to meet Holiness the Dalai Lama. They've gone plenty of times in the past.
Yeah. Nancy Pelosi last year was in Taiwan, and only today about $317 million aid has been now extended by US to Taiwan itself. So there are
Nancy Pelosi's third visit to Dharamshala. We must know.
visit.
So this angle that United States is doing something. No, the very arrival of His Holiness the Dalai Lama to India as refugees, and also setting up a special frontier force, which is key important real here in Indian Army,
ITBP.
was also because of United States support to India 65 years ago.
Correct. Okay, let Sushant complete and then I'm not talking. Yes, Sushant.
So the point I was trying to make is that, one, this is not the first time. There are plenty of people from the US who have gone, some for spiritual reasons, other for more political and geopolitical reasons. So there's nothing novel on this. The Chinese have always, reacted very petulantly on this matter, partly for right reasons and partly for utterly silly reasons. But that's China for you. The important thing is that, yes, as far as India is concerned, if there is somebody who wants to go and call on His Holiness the Dalai Lama, we don't have a problem with it, and we are quite open with it. That is one part of it. The second part of it is, do the Americans have a right to meddle? In a way, yes, and in a way, no. No, because the Americans have a right, have a tendency to meddle in affairs and actually make a hash of things. They don't really solve things. Look, they went into Syria trying to free the Syrians from Syria, and look what they've left behind. They went into Iraq trying to free the Iraqis from the Iraqis, and look what they've made of it. So one needs to be extremely careful about American meddling. That is one part of it. But the second part is, when you have a country like the United States, which is a country which is every country's neighbor, its global footprint makes it the neighbor of every country, and it has a finger in almost every pie. There is going to be, whether we like it or not, whether it's technically correct or not, you will see some amount of meddling. The Chinese do it all over the place. The Americans have been doing it for many years. So I think that should answer that part of it. And the third thing is on the succession of His Holiness the Dalai Lama. And on that, I am very clear. The Chinese will try every trick in the book. They've been doing it for very long, trying to ensure that, they control the succession, and whoever becomes the next Dalai Lama, according to them, is their puppet. But look, the Dalai Lama is a figure who has to be accepted by the people of Tibet. The Chinese can impose whoever they want to. If he is not acceptable to the people of Tibet, that's the end of the story. So, and I would imagine that the people of Tibet, both within Tibet as well as in the diaspora, will accept whoever becomes anointed the Dalai Lama according to the Tibetan way and according to the procedures and the processes outlined by the Dalai Lama, rather than outlined by the
PLA.
China.
Yeah. Aina Tangin, Taiwan, Tibet, is this now slowly delinking away from the one China policy which the US in the past has recognized? And is that the biggest step that's happening?
I don't think it's a real delinkage. I think it's just trying to focus the world on trying to make China look like the bad guy. I mean, you've seen it in Hong Kong, you've seen it in Xinjiang, you've seen it in Taiwan, and now they're going back to Tibet. It's a situation which is hard to, express. You have people who feel very strongly in terms of the religion; they're entitled to do so. But the fact is, under the tutelage, under the reign of the Dalai Lama and the gentry, the majority of people, vast majority, over 95%, were slaves. They were indentured servants. They lived to the ripe old age of 42 on average. They were illiterate. They had really nothing to look forward to except, the preachings of the religious people who told them that if they just, kept at it, they'd have a better life in the future. Today, Tibet is an open place. People go there all the time. I have many friends who have visited. They don't tell me that it's a place under occupation. They meet different lamas there. They talk to people. They've been interviewed. They're extremely urbane, very, very modern, and they like their society. They don't want to go back to indentured servitude, and that's their choice. So at this point, from China's perspective, this is just political interference, much like
1 minute, Tenzing.
the US
Let him make his point. Let him make his point.
He made it.
much like the U.S. interfered in the Indian. Listen, my dear fellow, you have a diarrhea of the mouth. You cannot seem to shut up. Let others finish.
You just
okay?
cannot blame
So in any
just because India gives you platform.
Why don't you? Can you?
No, but see, I'll tell you what, Tenzing, let him make it. Let's not get personal here, and let's not lose control. Let's not lose our control. Tenzing, just wait. Allow him another 45 seconds. Let him complete his point, and then you please counter him, so that every point of view is heard.
The issue is that
you may disagree. You may disagree with him. We may disagree with him. A lot of viewers may agree. He heard us out. Let us hear him out. Let us hear him out, and then you counter him, Tenzing. Yes, yes, Mr. Tani.
You have the U.S. has been involved actively in trying to intervene in other countries. The Congress funds an organization that produces regime change. India was suffered under this during the last election, when it was very noticed that the U.S. was taking a hand in criticizing the Modi government. I mean, you could say that this is inevitable, but it doesn't make it right. So at the end of the day, you should add Afghanistan to your list, as well as Somalia and so many other countries. The United States is a country that's only been at peace for 15 years in its 248-year history. It has had troops in all but 3 countries. So trying to say that the U.S. is a savior, I think you have to reflect a little bit on that.
Right. The CCP and the PLA cannot color themselves in glory. Name one country that has actually prospered because of its influence or engagement with the CCP and led or PLA led China. Every other nation is in a debt trap. Is in such a debt trap that they have no other ways of recovering. So the delinking is not possible, and the thriving or the growing is not possible. And in and around China itself, there are so many regions which have now been renamed, rebranded, and ethnically cleansed. So that's also evident there. But Tenzing Chundu, you disagree with Einar Tangen. Go ahead, please.
Mr. Anna, or whatever his name is, I mean, just because India offers you a platform for a civil discussion, it doesn't mean you can blabber your propaganda here. We know what is happening in China, and perhaps you have been told to, blabber on talking about all this, Chinese propaganda. But the reality is, under Mao Zedong's rule. Now you listen to me. My turn. Under Mao Zedong's rule, 45 million Chinese died of starvation, and you are still keeping Mao Zedong as the father of the nation. What does it talk about a country where you have suppressed your own people under your own control? And today China is suffering because Xi Jinping is maintaining this dictatorial regime. Not only Chinese people are suffering, but China's occupied countries like Tibet, East Turkestan, Southern Mongolia, Manchuria, all these 4 countries put together make 60% of China's landmass. On this 60% of landmass, from there you are mining gold, lithium, natural gas, oil, and you are now taking them and selling it to countries around the world, particularly from Tibet. China is mining lithium and rare earths, and China is now selling it to countries around the world. And this is the country which is most suppressed in China. And today, and now you are saying, what kind of history, what kind of background about His Holiness? His Holiness the Dalai Lama is the most respected, loved personality in the world today. And the question here Sushant is asking is about the future of His Holiness the Dalai Lama. At the moment, His Holiness is very much here among us, and he is saying that the ultimate decision about the future of His Holiness the Dalai Lama is his own word. And he said he would leave behind written statement where and when that future incarnation is going to be. But interestingly, what you also said is, let's see who lives longer, His Holiness the Dalai Lama or the Chinese Communist Party. The Chinese Communist Party is going to collapse and break out, and that is truly going to be freedom.
Well, we are none of us are for soothsayers, and none of us can actually look into the future. But there are certain trends, and there are certain the deviations that are happening in direction that world is taking. We'll have to wait and watch. I have to cut this conversation short, but my only point of view is that if there is a step away from one China, then that has to be a bold and a clear step. It cannot be half a step forward and 2 steps back.
Absolutely.
And nations have to be very clear about that. I thank all our guests. I just request Sushant Sareen to stay back. We will turn the spotlight towards yet another issue, ladies and gentlemen. This should concern a thriving democracy which says that we are democratic partners with another nation is standing and observing a moment of silence for a person who's broken Canadian laws itself by wielding an AK-47 in his hand, a known terrorist who rejected entry into Canada. Now the parliament is standing and giving him obeisance, commemorating his death. Have they forgotten what has been perpetrated by these kind of elements from Canadian soil with the Kanishk bombings, whose anniversary comes just on the coming Sunday? Ladies and gentlemen, they've forgotten that, and they're standing up for a terrorist, a proclaimed wanted man. What has Canadian democracy come to? When we come back, stay with us. To mark 1 year of the killing of terrorists and a wanted man and a Khalistani sympathizer, Hardeep Singh Nijjar, are a confirmed Khalistani. In fact, as far as the Indian authorities are concerned, the Canadian Parliament honoured by standing up for a moment in silence in the House of Commons on Tuesday. Nijjar, the chief of the Khalistan Tiger Force, was killed in a shooting in Canada's Surrey, outside British Columbia Gurdwara on the 18th of June last year. His name was on the list released by the government of India with 40 other designated terrorists. He has repeatedly been denied entry into Canada, and by fraudulent and other means he had tried to continue to move into Canada. And those are videos that have been accessed by CNN News 18 where he is brandishing an AK-47, which is against the gun laws of Canada itself, and he is doing target practice and training other terrorists. This secessionist, this terrorist, he is somebody who's been commemorated by the House of Commons there. Have they ever stood up in memory of those who were killed by these very Khalistanis in the Kanishk bombings? Or has that all been forgotten? The Indian Embassy is going to commemorate that on Sunday. But Sushant Sareen, as he stays on with us, what's happening with the Canadians? Or have the Khalistani elements, have these elements, these gangster, drug lords, terrorist elements, made their foray or entrenched themselves so deep within the Canadian polity?
So, Anand, what do you make of a parliament which not long back actually felicitated a Nazi? And everybody stood up in that parliament and were rapturous about a Nazi who had killed I don't know how many people. So if that parliament is now commemorating another terrorist, a notorious terrorist at that, a man, a violent man, a man who called for killings of all kinds of people and who justified it, and a despicable man and a despicable lot of people who support this man, if that parliament is now commemorating him, I'm not in the least surprised. All that I'm waiting for is that the Canadian Parliament will one day, the day a certain group of people has enough votes, they will commemorate Osama bin Laden. They will hold a moment of silence for Osama bin Laden. They will hold a moment of silence for the chief of Hamas, who's responsible for the massacres of October 7. And for all you know, the Canadians under Justin Trudeau might even actually hold a moment of silence for Hitler one day, assuming that there are enough number of people with an ideology or German origins who vote for them. So that's the level to which the Canadian Parliament has sunk. And frankly, this is a common problem in most of these white countries like Britain and Canada and Australia and the United States. But Canada is terrible on this. But I think we have also been remiss. I don't see why we have soft pedaled this issue of Canada and kept it at a very nice level.
See, Canada is part of the Five Eyes, Sushant Sareen. So let me ask you this. Is America playing a very dangerous game with Bharat, where it bats with Bharat against the PLA vis-a-vis Tibet and Taiwan is concerned, but it uses Canada to once again bat and try and finger India?
Anand, America has always played these games, and even as we speak, they're not only playing this game on the issue of Khalistan and China, but they are also, it now seems, doing their utmost to prop up Pakistan in one form or another, right? Whether it is by sanctioning them IMF loans, despite the fact that economically they've not delivered on the goods. Despite that, the Americans are pushing for an IMF loan. The Americans are trying to push, for things to give them some relief because apparently they claim to be fighting terrorists, giving them a lot of audience inside America on these issues. There is some talk that there might be weapon transfers also. So they're doing it with the Pakistanis. So Americans always play these games. And one of the reasons why they play these games is because we are not ready to become a subservient state. We are not ready to become a subordinate state to the Americans. And they have not understood that India can be a great partner. India can be, a great ally also in some ways. But India is not going to become a slave nation like, Britain or some other countries have been, in Europe have been. We are not going to do that.
Right.
That's, we have too much of a baggage to be able to do that. Individuals might do it. Individuals in India do it. Individuals in India will hanker for an invitation from the American embassy or a junket from the US Congress or money from American foundations to run their own shops out here. Individual Indians have always betrayed this country, and many of them will do it.
Right.
But I think India as a country will never let
Now
that
we'll
happen.
have to wait and see how many turn up and how many from actually the opposition also turn up, and from within the government also who disagree with what was done in the Canadian House of Commons turn up on Sunday when the martyrs and those who died in the Kanishk bombings, their death is commemorated, that attack is commemorated by the Indian Embassy. Thank you very much, Sushant Sari. Winding up the right stand on that note, brass tacks follows.
Co-powered by This is CNN News 18 and Federal Bank Primetime Studio.
Hello and welcome to Brass Tacks. I'm Zakir Jacob. We're coming to you live from the CNN News 18 and Federal Bank Primetime Studio. Delhi is going through arguably one of the worst water crises that it has ever seen in the history of the national capital. The weather is so bad at over 45 degrees Celsius that just this month of June alone, and we're barely 20 days in, we've seen twice the number of heat wave days as compared to last year. What is even more concerning is the dire shortage of water, even in some of the plushest areas of the capital, which is known as, of course, Lutyens Delhi. But the party that governs Delhi, the Aam Aadmi Party, has passed the buck, saying it is because Haryana, the neighboring state, is not releasing adequate water that Delhi is parched. Now, you even have this rather piquant situation where the minister in charge for water resources in Delhi, Atishi, is threatening to sit on a hunger strike in front of the Prime Minister's residence unless the Prime Minister solves the water crisis. Now, ladies and gentlemen, but let's be very, very clear about this. Yes, Delhi is a divided government. It's half a state. The Aam Aadmi Party government does not necessarily control all levers of the state, as it were, here in the national capital. But the Aam Aadmi Party is the elected government of Delhi.